Okay, I don't know if I mentioned this. Actually, I know I didn't mention it, but I recently moved. So this is my new place. So, hi there. It's a Sean of SGH photo. I'm actually in the middle of working right now. I just did a dance competition that I need to work on editing the photos for. Well, not editing, but processing, I should say. As well as a volleyball tournament we just did, the first one of the season. But either way, I'm not here for work. I'm actually here for Transformer comics. That's something else, as you guys know, if you've been viewing my YouTube channel, one of my hobbies is reading is Transformers. Pretty much anything with the Transformers, especially the classic Transformers and the comic books made in that vein, like the new Skybound comics, which are basically G1 for the 21st century. But anyway, I was requested to do a video on the British comics again. I know a lot of American viewers especially don't really know the layout of the British comics. I was talking to someone who bought the Kickstarter a comic book, compilation, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we get a chance to see these new stories," which is great. And I mentioned, well, yeah, but it only copies the stories, the main feature stories, but not the stuff inside, the secondary story, all of the other things that are involved. And they're like, "Oh, what do you mean?" So I said I would show them. So let me see. Let me get the first issue I have. That's not a reprint. It wasn't reprinted in the States. These are all U.S. comics. Now, this is Man of Iron. This was reprinted in the States in the early 30s, early 30s. But this one, The Enemy Within, was not. Now, I'm sure, I think I've probably even mentioned the story already, so I'm not going to go too much into that, but I want to show you something else. Let me just get this out here. Go over here where I have more room. Okay, so this is the actual 1985 comic book. It's not a reprint. So you know about the main feature, but you see when you first open it up, there is an Autobot fact file, which is on WindCharger this time. Letter from the editor, Transformers credits, an advert for the Insecticons. People have asked questions, and there's the answer. Hello from Hasbro. There's a whole bunch of things here. Oh, it's funny. I forgot about this, actually. There's a recent comic book now talking about the worst bot ever. And I guess one of the children actually made that same thing, a pencil bot. I'm sure it's a coincidence. It really is, I'm sure. Unless that kid happened to have written the new comic that came out a few years ago. But anyway, I mentioned that you can write to a character. They'll answer in character. Like at the time, I think you were writing the sound wave. Maybe a little bit after this, but I also mentioned how there were different things. So there's a two-page story, and this time it's the Chromobots, which I know a lot of people who remember it couldn't stand it or whatever, but I really liked it. Then there's the main feature, a Designer Decepticon. There's a Machine Man, with the secondary features usually a reprint of a U.S. story, which is Machine Man on this time. Competition, Robot Roundup, I'll show you what that is. A puzzle, and a Matt and the Cat. It's like a 4-panel comic cartoon funnies thing, like in the Sunday Funnies. So the Chromobots. Now, I really like the Chromobots. This is basically, this was an original story written for the comic, and it's basically a 2-page serial involving, basically, it's kind of the Transformers storyline, but rather than them being giant robots, they're like the size of toys, or like kids' toys, and only this kid Dudley knows about them. They're alien robots and fighting a war, but they're kids, they're the toy size. It's kind of cool. I mean, again, I liked it. I don't know, maybe I'm just weird like that. I know a lot of people didn't. Okay, so the advertising for a watch. Then here's the main feature, which is reprinted in the compilation, which if you have that, I'm sure you know about. So we'll go into this. Oh, I should mention too, in the very beginning, the whole comic was not in color. So these few pages were, then it goes to black and white. They usually try to keep the main feature, the Transformers, in color as much as possible. And then the secondary feature would be in black and white. So here's some artwork that kids have drawn. Back to the story, and this is the end of the main feature. So now a Return of the Jedi comic. I always wanted to see that. I've seen the Star Wars comic, but I've never seen the Return of the Jedi comic. But anyway, here's a Machine Man, which is a reprint, I think, of a comic from the late 70s in the U.S. I actually have some of these comics, Machine Man. Pretty cool, if you like that kind of thing. So here's a little puzzle. I never really drew into my comics, which I'm glad of, because now I wouldn't have liked that. Then Robot Roundup, where they basically talk about robots, whether they're real robots that people have built, or maybe TV robots. Like here is, actually, Rock and Roll with Rock, I don't know what that is. A couple robots that I guess people did build, and then Terminator was pretty new at the time, so he was a robot apparently. Never watched it. Okay, so, oh, and going back to the secondary feature, there's Machine Man, and then here's a puzzle with Prowl trying to find the Decepticon base, and a subscription advert, which you couldn't really subscribe to in Canada anyway. You had to buy it at the comic book store. Matt and the Cat, I mentioned that was a 4-panel, or maybe 6-panel, whatever, kind of funnies thing. I think that was serialized too, but it was more like a humorous thing. I never really liked it very much. But the writer of that, I believe, it doesn't mention, but I think that's the same writer from the Chromobots. That was also, I think, exclusive to the UK Transformer comic. Next issue advert, the end of the secondary feature, and an advert for toys. So, as you can see, there was a lot more in the comic book that was never reprinted, which is why I really like having my old comic books. I've got about 200 of the US comics, and I have the incomplete set of the I've got about 200 of the UK comics, and the complete set of the US comics. So that's something that you won't see anywhere else. I don't think they're ever going to reprint that, probably because of copyright. I mean, like, again, the writers, this wasn't Simon Furman or someone who's known in the UK that's now known to write Transformer comics. Mike Crazy Bird is the one who wrote the let me turn around here. That's on the other side. Mike Crazy, oh, that's not right. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I'm gonna turn this. Okay. Mike Crazy Bird is the one who wrote the Chromobots, for instance. That's probably not going to be reprinted unless they can get the rights from him. The secondary features, there were Marvel US comics. I don't think they'd have to get the rights to each comic to reprint them. They didn't always do Machine Man. They did Machine Man for a while. They did Rocket Raccoon, which is known now because of the Guardian of the Galaxy. They did Iron Man, which again, back then Iron Man wasn't really very big, so they probably got that pretty easily. Now Iron Man, of course, is much bigger. Rocket Raccoon is much bigger, but at the time, in the early mid '80s, they weren't really that popular, I don't think. Anyway, so that's just an idea of how the comics run. Hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. Again, please keep the comments G-rated, okay? Anything that's not is going to be deleted. Thank you very much.